Hello friends, it's Allison Vanderslice and thank you for joining me in another Slice It Up video. Today we're going to be making 9 cards using this beautiful floral patterned paper. This is a 12 by 12 piece and it's actually double-sided. We'll use both sides today, but mainly focusing on the floral side. What's cool about this floral side is that it has a texture to it. It's kind of like a wallpaper feeling almost. There's a little bit of a grain. I'm going to start by cutting this piece at 4 inches. I'm trying to make it so that way I can keep as much of the flower together as possible without slicing them in half too much. I'm going to take that piece and rotate it, and we're going to cut this one at 3 1/4 inches. So it will be 4 inches by 3 1/4 inches. This one I'm going to move up, check to see where I would like to cut it. And this one I'm going to cut at 4 1/2 inches. And this last piece is going to be 4 1/4 inches by 4 inches. Going back to our big piece, this is going to be the 12 inches along the top now. We're going to cut at 4 inches, slide the paper over, and then cut at 4 inches again. So this is going to give us 3 strips that are 4 inches by 8 inches long. We'll rotate one of those pieces, and then we'll cut this one at 4 1/4 inches. And that will leave us with another piece that is 3 3/4 inches. The next 4-inch strip rotated with the 8 inches going across the top will be cut at 5 1/4 inches. And that's going to give us this really pretty floral. That's what drew me to this pattern paper. Our next 8-inch piece going across, we will cut at 4 1/4 inches. And here are all of our pieces. So you could see there how some had main flowers for a focal point and others were more plain with just the greenery. So I was trying to keep all of the florals intact. So here's that really pretty part that drew me into the paper to begin with. It is like a wreath, a little bouquet. I kept it whole, and that's basically all I'm going to do for this card is just leave it like that. I'm going to go through and get a cream ribbon to tie around the front of this before I actually secure it to the card base. I was contemplating using a pink, but I didn't have any that I thought matched very well, so I went with the cream instead. I'm going to use my tear tape to put 2 little strips on the back of that card front. This way I can adhere the ribbon to it. I'm going to remove the backing from the tear tape and then take one end of the ribbon and place it on the adhesive, wrap it around the front, and then adhere to the other side. And then I'll cut off the excess. This time I just left it on the spool so that way I didn't have too much left over and waste anything. I'm going to cut off another piece and I'm going to tie it in a knot, kind of like where the bow is on this floral image. Then I'll trim it up. I finally get to use one of these glue dots from the Stampin' Up! Paper Pumpkin Kit, and I'm going to put that down behind where the knot is and adhere it down just so it doesn't slide all around. Now I'm going to take my liquid glue and put it on the back of the card front and then adhere to the card base. This next one will be the 4" by 4.5" piece. Again, we're going to leave it pretty much the same as it is. I'm going to get my liquid glue and put it on the back and then adhere to the card front. And I'm using liquid glue just because I think it's more cost effective when I'm batch making. Use whatever you are more comfortable with. I'm going to again come in with another supply from a paper pumpkin box. These are the iridescent sequins that already have adhesive on the back, so it makes just putting them on the card really easy. I'm going to put these sequins right in the center of the flowers, just to give it a little bit more pizzazz. This floral piece is 4" by 2 3/4 inches, and this stripe piece is 4" by 2.5 inches. I'm going to go ahead and flip these over. And this is what I think it's going to look like on the card front. I'm going to take a piece of Scotch tape and adhere those two pieces together, lining them up, not putting them on top of each other. And then I'm going to take some tear tape and put that along the seam, remove the backing, and then put that cream ribbon across the seam just to make it look a little bit more cohesive. We'll cut off the excess. I'm now going to take a glue dot and put that down in the middle of the card front so that way the ribbon stays tight. I'll then flip it over and put some liquid glue on, and then we'll adhere it to the card front. This next piece is going to be 4" by 3 1/4 inch. I'm going to take this light blue cardstock, which is scrapbook size, so 12 by 12 paper. I'm going to put liquid glue on the back of the 4" by 3 1/4 inch piece, and then I'm going to adhere it to the light blue cardstock piece. I'm leaving a small border on each side. Taking my paper trimmer, I am going to try to cut off an equal border. I don't think I succeeded this first time around, so I'm going to have to go back and trim that. I'm also not cutting all the way down. I'm just using my trimmer and putting it where it needs to cut. It's kind of hard to see here. You can also use scissors if you feel more comfortable with that rather than the trimmer. I'm going to do the same thing with the striped side. So this piece is 4" by 1 1/4 inch. I'll put glue down on the back. And that's one thing I like about the silicone craft sheet from Stampin' Up! Is that it does not adhere to it. It just wipes off pretty easily. I do need to clean mine because, as you can see, I don't wipe it off right away. I just keep going. Anyway, I'm going to drop the glue side down. I'll wipe that off the cardstock. And then I'm going to do the same thing where I will slice down the border. You can see a little better here where I'm saying I'm not cutting all the way through the cardstock sheet. I'm just cutting off the sections where I need with the trimmer. Again, if you don't feel comfortable with that, go ahead and use scissors or just cut all the way through your cardstock. We're now going to adhere these pieces to the card front. I'm going to put liquid glue on both so that way I don't have to stop in between. I'm going to pick up both pieces so that way I am ready to go. As you can see, I'm struggle bussing. We'll put the striped piece going down the right hand side, and then we'll layer the floral piece on top of that. This next one is a 4¼ inch by 4" piece. This one's going to be pretty simple. We're just going to put liquid glue on the back, and then I'm going to take some of those iridescent sequins and put them on the card front. This next piece will be 4¼ inches by 4 inches. Right now I'm just moving it around to see where I thought it would be best positioned on the vellum. I'm going to use tear tape this time because liquid glue sometimes warps vellum and I didn't want to risk that. I'm going to be using the striped side because I do have a couple of boys who are going to be receiving birthday cards and I didn't think they would like the floral as much, and I thought the striped side would suit it well. For this, I'm going to adhere the 4¼ inch by 4" piece on the vellum, leaving a smaller border at the top and left and right, but then I'm going to extend the border down onto the bottom. So the vellum's going to cover the whole card front, even though the pattern paper isn't. I'm going to open up the card front because I'm going to be doing a little bit of stamping and I might go over the edge. And there you can see how the card front with the vellum is filling up the whole page. I'm going to be using a stamp from the stamp set that I got in a paper pumpkin box. And then I'm also going to be using one of the Stampin' Spots that I received in a paper pumpkin box as well. This ink color is Misty Moonlight. It's a really nice navy blue. I'm going through and I'm using first generation, second generation, and so on and so forth onto this just bottom chunk of the paper, so there's some texture coming through the vellum. I really liked the contrast of it. Since I like the way that looked, I'm going to take more tear tape, put that only where the pattern of paper is, not where the vellum is by itself, and then I'm going to adhere it to the card front. Me realizing I got ink on the card front. So sad. But we're gonna fix that. That's okay. I didn't know if it came from my fingers. You'll see me check here in a moment. Like, where did that come from? My fingers? It might have come from the front of the Stampin' foam thing. So what I'm going to do to cover that up is I'm just going to do the same with the little spots. I will do some first and second generation and then just stamp it off in a couple of spots to give the card front just, again, a little bit more texture and to cover up our little tiny mistake. All right, we have one more 4¼ inch by 4" piece that we are going to use. Right now you're seeing me check where I want it to go. We're going to have it more towards the center this time. There'll be a little bit more spacing on the top and the bottom than the left and right. I laid down a extra piece of scrapbook paper backing. I think it was from one of those packages. So that way I can do some ink blending. To make sure I don't get any ink on the back of my card front, I'm going to take some Post-it notes and put that along the score line. Again, so that way we don't get any ink on that back. Using that Misty Moonlight ink and an ink blender brush, I am going to just go ahead and go really heavy around all of the outside and kind of lightening up towards the middle. I'm not going to do the whole card front because, as you saw, we're going to cover up the middle, so there's no need of wasting all of that time and ink during this process. I know this isn't very blended right now. I'm just going through and trying to lay the color down as much as possible And then I'll go through and even it out a little bit. Right now I'm checking to see if I made sure I covered all the space that I wanted and we had the coverage that I like with the color. I'm going to just make it a little bit darker at the top, balance it out some more. And then we will go ahead and remove those post-it notes to hopefully reveal a clean line. It wasn't quite even, but it was pretty good. I'm going to fold the card back up, use my bone folder to make it more crisp and folded. And then we will put the card front on top of the card base to see what it looks like. I'm going to add some of those little dots again on the front of this card with, again, first and second generation stamping. I'm going to use tear tape this time on the back instead of liquid glue because I didn't know how that would react with the ink if it wasn't dry, so I didn't want to risk anything. That's just how my brain was working that day. I really liked how these two turned out. I wasn't expecting it, but I think they're probably my favorite of the bunch. And here are the rest of the cards. Now, I didn't use all of the pieces. I do have a few extra remaining that I just put into my scrap stash. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, feel free to give it a thumbs up. And if you enjoyed my content, you can go ahead and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again next time. Bye!